When it comes to relationship trouble, a partner with narcissistic personality disorder combined with a partner with borderline personality disorder can be volatile and destructive. Today, we'll look at borderline personality disorder and how it combines with narcissistic personality disorder to create a lot of heartache for both individuals. It's Gabrielle, and for over 12 years, I've been a licensed professional counselor and relationship expert in private practice in Boulder, Colorado. And my practice is grounded in the science of what makes relationships work. Today, we're going to walk through the important aspects of borderline personality disorder and how they affect intimate relationships, especially when the opposite partner has narcissistic personality disorder. The partnering of these two personality styles can be particularly upsetting and thorny, so let's get into it. First, let's talk about borderline personality disorder, or BPD. BPD is rooted in a fundamental distortion in the sense of self and the sense of other people. As we've seen in previous videos, all personality disorders involve a fundamental distortion in these two things. Because the sense of self and others is distorted, it makes it difficult to deal with reality as it actually is. Instead, the person with a personality disorder has a need to live according to a fantasy of themselves and other people. And these fantasies make it very challenging for the person to function, both as an individual and in their relationships. Now, the nature of these fantasies about self and other vary depending on which personality disorder we're talking about. If you've been following the videos on this channel, you know that I've talked about narcissistic personality disorder, and we all know how the narcissist fantasizes about how great they are. This delusion of grandeur impairs the narcissist's ability to function in their relationships. As we've seen, the narcissist has an inflated sense of self. They see themselves as all-powerful and they believe they can do no wrong, at the detriment of other people. So that's the narcissist's fantasy. As we've talked about, this delusion of grandeur doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's the result of early trauma and abuse from a parent or caregiver that resulted in a very fragmented sense of self. Now, the borderline's fantasy is quite different. In contrast to the narcissist, the borderline has a deflated sense of self-esteem. As opposed to the narcissist who experiences themselves as superior, outstanding in every way, and better than other people, the borderline experiences themselves as needy, broken, and empty. Whereas narcissists focus all of the criticism on others and how the problem lies outside themselves, borderlines are overly self-critical. They see themselves as the problem. Now, obviously, being willing to look at one's role in the problems that one has in one's life is a good thing, but borderlines fault themselves to such an extreme that it's completely debilitating. Borderlines feel perpetually unstable, both emotionally and in their lives as a whole. In fact, this feeling of instability can make it hard to know what direction they should go in life and what their goals are. Because they lack a feeling of strength and solidity internally, it can be difficult for them to know what they want out of life. When they do know what they want, they have a hard time asserting themselves because they're riddled with negative self-talk. Whereas the narcissist would tend to step on other people's toes to get what they want, the borderline is afraid of putting themselves out there at all for fear that they aren't good enough, won't make the right choices, and they'll be rejected. Now, many of us have self-confidence issues, but with borderline personality disorder, we're talking about a level of lack of self-confidence that is truly destructive to one's ability to function in the world. The second defining feature of the borderline personality is difficulties relating to others, and those difficulties manifest in two particular ways. The first is problems with empathy, and the second is problems with intimacy. So, what is empathy? Empathy means being able to recognize the experience of those around you, to put yourself in their shoes and feel the emotions that others experience. Why is empathy so critical in relationships? Relationships require us to be able to respond with sensitivity to those we care about. But in order to do so, we need to know what kind of response the other person needs. Do they need a hug? What words do they need to hear that would make them feel better? The only way to figure that out is to be able to feel something of what the other person is feeling. Empathy is critical to relationships because without it, we're unable to get in touch with the experience of others and how to respond to them. So how does borderline personality disorder affect empathy? With BPD, a person is not able to put their own perspective aside because they're so preoccupied with being hurt, taken advantage of, or treated unfairly by others. This makes it very hard for them to pay attention to, focus in on, and feel the feelings of another person. The other way that BPD creates problems in relationships is that it prevents intimacy. At its core, BPD involves an intense fear of abandonment. The closer a person with BPD gets to another person, the more afraid they become that that person is going to leave them. People with BPD can be very warm and affectionate, especially in the beginning of a new relationship. But as the relationship deepens, they are overwhelmed by the fear of abandonment. This fear can cause the person to both commit too quickly and, at the same time, pull away from their partner. For instance, the dating stage that typically characterizes the beginning of a new relationship is often very short or lacking altogether for people with BPD. They may tend to move in together with their partner, get an apartment with them within the first few months of knowing them. Now, it takes a year to really get to know a person and whether they're truly an appropriate partner for you. But people with BPD often skip this critical getting to know you phase of the relationship and jump into commitment too early because of their intense fear of abandonment. It's just too scary for them to deal with the natural uncertainty that characterizes the beginning stages of a new relationship when partners are unsure of whether or not they will enter into a long-term, committed, intimate relationship. Often, this need to jump into commitment ends in disaster. When the newness of the relationship is over, the person with BPD suddenly realizes that there are things about their partner that are deal breakers for them, that they didn't realize because they didn't take the time to get to know their partner in the first place. Now they may be married, pregnant, or financially entangled and finding themselves in an untenable relationship. This is a common picture for people with BPD. People with BPD often get into relationships of extremes. They may alternate between having hot, passionate sex with their partner or moments of feeling loved and cherished by them, followed by being abused, neglected, or mistreated by their partner. This on-again, off-again kind of relationship takes two people, and it's important to realize that. In fact, people with borderline personality disorder often pair up with people who have narcissistic personality disorder. This is where things get really problematic. Why do people with borderline personality disorder often pair up with people who have narcissistic personality disorder? Remember that you're biologically hardwired to connect with at least one other special person in order to ensure that you survive when you're young. And this need for connection continues throughout the lifespan. The part of your brain that ensures that you get the connection you need is called your attachment system. When you feel safe and held, your attachment system calms down, and you can get on with the other things in life, like exploring your environment and developing yourself. But when no one consistently has your back when you're little, your attachment system is turned on all the time. You can't stop thinking about the next time you're going to be abandoned and what you need to do to protect yourself, to avoid this experience and maintain the connection. Not being abandoned becomes your number one preoccupation, and that is exactly what happens for children who go on to develop borderline personality disorder. Our brains go for what is familiar. If you were mistreated, abused, or abandoned as a child, which all people with BPD were, that becomes your relationship blueprint. You're likely to recreate that blueprint, that same experience, in your adult intimate relationships until you resolve the issues that created that pattern in the first place. People with BPD have a blueprint that involves intense unpredictability. That's because sometimes a parent might have been warm and affectionate with them, but at other times that parent was mean, physically or sexually abusive, or abandoning. And as a result, the person with BPD is constantly seeking affection and stability, and their attachment system is unable to calm down. So back to our question, why do borderlines often pair with narcissists? Think about the experience of being with a narcissist for a second. Sometimes they can be sweet and affectionate, making their partner feel wonderful, and at other times they're hostile, aggressive, and critical. This is the cycle of narcissistic abuse that characterizes people with narcissistic personality disorder. For the partner of the person with NPD, this leaves them in an unpredictable state in which their attachment system is perpetually turned on. The partner of the narcissist is constantly questioning whether they are valuable or worthless, hated or loved. They ask themselves questions like, is he going to connect with me today? Does he really love me? If I just give him what he wants, will he stop hurting me? The roller coaster of emotions that the partner of someone with narcissistic personality disorder experiences is all too familiar to a person with borderline personality disorder. It's what they're used to. In fact, borderlines often confuse love with this destructive roller coaster of emotions that they experience in an abusive relationship. And in a way, you can kind of understand it. The early stages of a relationship are often very tumultuous, full of highs and lows. But if this is your ongoing experience in a long-term committed relationship, this is not a sign that you are settling into a healthy, stable bond with another person. Secure relationships feel calm and peaceful. You don't have to worry if your partner is going to leave you or if you're going to leave your partner. In fact, those thoughts never enter your mind because you feel safe, held, and cherished all the time. In that kind of relationship, your attachment system calms down, and you're able to devote yourself to life pursuits that enhance the quality of your life and the lives of others. If you think you may be suffering from borderline personality disorder and you're in a relationship, or you have a history of relationship problems, the first thing is to ask yourself about the quality of those relationships that you find yourself in or have found yourself in the past. Here's the critical thing to know. Many people who have symptoms of borderline personality disorder get better once they put an end to being abused or neglected and enter into a relationship with someone who truly has their back. This only makes sense. You need to feel safe, held, and nurtured before you can start the healing process. Now let's hear from you. Do you or does someone you know display some of the characteristics of borderline personality disorder? If so, and yourself or that person is in a relationship, what relationship dynamics might be contributing to their symptoms? And how might their lives change if they were free from the cycle of abuse? Leave me your comments below. I look forward to reading them and seeing you in the next video. And if you liked what you learned in this video, please give it a like right now and share it. Please go to my website, thepowercoupleformula.com, for lots more information about how to build an amazing relationship, and powercoupleseducation.com to stay connected.